Ladies and gentlemen, what just unfolded on live television was nothing short of explosive. Karoline Leavitt, the bold and unapologetic GOP powerhouse, took on MSNBC's Nicole Wallace in a segment that quickly turned into a verbal battleground.
And as President Trump asked in his speech last night, how could anyone possibly be opposed to any of this action that he is taking? Well, apparently, the modern-day Democrat Party could. The behavior of Democrats last night was completely disgraceful and demonstrated how severely out of touch they are with the American public.
This wasn't just another political debate. This was a full-scale reality check, and Wallace never saw it coming. Leavitt came in prepared, sharp, and unshaken, and within moments, she flipped the script, delivering a relentless takedown that left viewers in shock. From calling out media bias to exposing the double standards in political reporting, this moment had it all. And trust me, this wasn't just a heated exchange. This was a defining moment in live TV history.
A long life as a law enforcement officer, but I hope he never has to defend the United States Capitol against Donald Trump supporters. And if he does, I hope he isn't one of the 6 who loses his life to suicide. And I hope he isn't one who has to testify against the people who carried out acts of seditious conspiracy and then live to see Donald Trump pardon those people.
You know, this woman's TDS is incurable. Even Rachel Maddow tried to move on the conversation right after that. She didn't want any part of that lunacy.
Now, let's set the stage. Nicole Wallace, the well-known MSNBC anchor, has spent years crafting her brand by taking swipes at conservatives. She's no stranger to painting Republicans as extremists, using loaded questions and carefully framed narratives to push her agenda, all while maintaining that signature smirk. But this time, she picked the wrong opponent. Enter Karoline Leavitt, a rising star in conservative politics and someone who came prepared, armed with facts, confidence, and zero tolerance for media spin. And when the cameras rolled, she didn't just hold her own, she delivered a takedown so swift and precise that it left viewers stunned.
Demented diatribe from MSNBC's Nicole Wallace. Watch as she turns a beautiful moment into something unhinged and ugly. Let's first have a look at the beautiful moment.
Joining us in the gallery tonight is a young man who truly loves our police. His name is DJ Daniel. He is 13 years old, and he has always dreamed of becoming a police officer. In 2018, DJ was diagnosed with brain cancer. The doctors gave him 5 months at most to live. And tonight, DJ, we're going to do you the biggest honor of them all. I am asking our new Secret Service Director, Sean Curran, to officially make you an agent of the United States Secret Service.
Wallace has built her reputation on discrediting conservatives, carefully steering discussions so her opponents are always on the defensive. She's mastered the art of interruption, talking over guests and shaping narratives to make Republicans look like villains. But this time, Leavitt didn't take the bait. She knew this game all too well, and instead of falling into Wallace's trap, she flipped the script entirely. What happened next was one of the most intense, must-see political showdowns on live TV in recent memory. It all started when Nicole Wallace, in her usual condescending tone, attempted to trap Karoline Leavitt with a loaded question about the Republican Party's stance on key issues.
Problem is, in the beauty of that child is the tragedy of the Trump presidency. Because we don't know how he survived pediatric cancer, but it is likely he benefited from some sort of cancer research. And it is a fact that Trump has slashed cancer research. It's a fact.
Wallace, with her trademark smugness, framed the GOP as out of touch and dangerous, clearly hoping to force Leavitt onto the defensive. She peppered her question with phrases like extreme rhetoric and radical policies, attempting to box Leavitt into a corner. But Karoline, she wasn't falling for it. Instead of getting rattled, Leavitt immediately went on offense. With laser-sharp precision, she turned the tables on Wallace, exposing the manipulative way the media frames political discussions. She didn't just reject the premise of Wallace's question, she dismantled it entirely, calling out the hypocrisy of a media landscape that routinely demonizes one political party while giving the other a free pass.
Last night was a very clarifying moment for our country. The Democrats exposed themselves as the party of insanity and hate, the party that wants to put America last. They've allowed their Trump derangement syndrome to stop them from celebrating America and our people, and we will not allow them to forget that.
Wallace, who was used to controlling the narrative, suddenly found herself struggling to keep up. And for the first time, it was her turn to be put on the defensive. Karoline Leavitt didn't just answer Wallace's question, she dismantled it with surgical precision. Right out of the gate, she called out MSNBC's blatant bias, exposing how the network twists facts to fit their own agenda. Without hesitation, she flipped the conversation, pointing out how mainstream media prioritizes divisive rhetoric over the real issues affecting Americans. And the best part? She did it all while keeping her composure, making Wallace look completely unprepared in the process.
And it's not just the Democrat Party. The mainstream media still doesn't get it. Last night, MSNBC's Nicole Wallace disgustingly looped in a 13-year-old boy with brain cancer into an attack on the president over January 6th.
Leavitt didn't stop there. She took control of the segment, turning the tables on Wallace in a way few guests have dared to. She pressed Wallace on MSNBC's selective outrage, demanding to know why the network stays silent on major issues that don't fit their narrative while blowing minor incidents out of proportion to push an agenda. Wallace, clearly caught off guard, scrambled for a response, struggling to justify the double standards Leavitt had just exposed on live television. The moment was undeniable proof that Leavitt wasn't just there to participate, she was there to dominate. Just when Nicole Wallace thought she could steer the conversation back in her favor, Karoline Leavitt unleashed a truth bomb so devastating that it sent shockwaves through the studio.
And CNN's first chyron out of the speech called it divisive. President Trump wasn't divisive. The Democrats were. And CNN was proven wrong by their own viewers, 69% of whom, in a post-speech poll, said they had a positive reaction to the president's speech.
Leavitt didn't just push back, she directly confronted Wallace on MSNBC's track record of misleading reporting, calling out specific instances where they manipulated narratives to fit their political agenda. And when Wallace tried to interject, Leavitt shut her down instantly. The usually composed MSNBC anchor was left stammering, visibly flustered, and completely outmatched in the debate. But Leavitt wasn't done yet. She took it a step further, pulling up MSNBC's recent coverage on several high-profile issues, exposing blatant inconsistencies in their reporting. With undeniable evidence in hand, she laid out example after example of how the network conveniently twisted facts, omitted crucial details, and shaped public perception to push a biased agenda. Wallace, now visibly uncomfortable, tried to deflect, but she had nowhere to run. With every weak attempt to regain control, Leavitt countered with facts, leaving no room for spin or media tricks. At that moment, it was clear to everyone watching, Wallace had just lost this debate in spectacular fashion. Desperate to regain control and save face, Nicole Wallace tried to clap back with the usual left-wing talking points. She accused Republicans of spreading misinformation and attempted to pivot the conversation back to familiar territory where she felt safe. But Karoline Leavitt wasn't letting that slide. With a calm but firm demeanor, she dismantled every weak argument Wallace threw her way, exposing the blatant hypocrisy in real time. She didn't just push back, she held Wallace accountable, turning what should have been a simple interview into a masterclass on handling media bias. And viewers, they loved every second of it. As the segment continued, Wallace's frustration became painfully obvious. She started interrupting, attempting to talk over Leavitt and wrestle back control of the conversation. But the more she tried to spin the story, the worse it got for her. Every attempt to shift the narrative only gave Leavitt more opportunities to expose the media's double standards, something viewers had been frustrated with for years. People watching from home could see it clear as day. Wallace was out of her depth, struggling to keep up. As the debate raged on, Leavitt knew she had Wallace cornered. With every weak rebuttal, Wallace dug herself deeper, unable to escape the mounting evidence against her network's hypocrisy. Sensing the moment was right, Leavitt delivered her final blow, a fact-packed takedown that left Wallace stunned. She called out the media's selective outrage, exposing how MSNBC had ignored key issues while amplifying narratives that served their agenda. Then, with poise and confidence, she posed a direct question to Wallace. If MSNBC claims to report the truth, why does it consistently cover for one side while attacking the other? For the first time in the segment, Wallace had no response. She hesitated, her usual quick retorts nowhere to be found. Instead of a strong comeback, all she could muster was a vague deflection, which only further proved Leavitt's point. The reaction from viewers at home was immediate. Social media erupted, with people praising Leavitt's sharp delivery and fearless exposure of the media's double standards. Clips of the exchange spread like wildfire as commentators, journalists, and everyday viewers weighed in on what they had just witnessed. Wallace, once known for controlling interviews, had just lost control on her own platform, and everyone saw it happen in real time. Leavitt had done what few conservative voices have managed to do on mainstream networks. She flipped the narrative, dominated the conversation, and walked away victorious. The immediate fallout from this exchange was nothing short of explosive. Within hours, clips of Leavitt's takedown flooded social media, with viewers replaying the moment Wallace lost control of the conversation. While Leavitt's supporters celebrated her victory, MSNBC went into damage control mode. The network quickly tried to spin the narrative, with some of their usual commentators downplaying the moment and framing Leavitt as combative and unreasonable. But the damage was already done. Rather than defending Wallace's arguments, MSNBC relied on the same tired tactics, labeling Leavitt as a far-right extremist and accusing her of attacking journalism. But their strategy backfired spectacularly. Viewers, even some who weren't typically aligned with Leavitt, saw through the spin. The evidence was undeniable. Wallace struggled to maintain control. MSNBC was exposed for its blatant bias. Leavitt refused to back down, delivering facts with precision. And the biggest takeaway? The media's credibility took another major hit. What was meant to be a routine MSNBC interview turned into a defining moment for Karoline Leavitt. Her fearlessness, composure, and ability to dismantle media narratives in real time didn't just impress conservatives. It caught the attention of many outside her usual base. Political analysts began taking note, with some even speculating that Leavitt could be a rising force in the conservative movement. One thing became crystal clear. This wasn't just an ordinary debate. It was a shift in power, and MSNBC had just felt the impact firsthand. As expected, social media exploded after the heated exchange. Within minutes, clips of Leavitt's takedown were spreading like wildfire, fueling debates across platforms. Conservatives cheered her on, celebrating the moment as one of the best conservative TV showdowns in recent memory. Even some moderates admitted that Wallace got completely outclassed. The hashtag #LeavittDestroys MSNBC started trending, dominating political discussions online. And here's where it got even more interesting. Even liberal commentators had to acknowledge the obvious. Wallace was completely out of her league. This wasn't just another viral moment. It was a defining milestone in Leavitt's rising political career. Notable conservative voices quickly chimed in, praising her fearless approach and sharp delivery. Political analysts started discussing whether Leavitt had cemented herself as a dominant force in conservative media. Even some left-leaning audiences had to admit Wallace had underestimated her opponent, and it showed. Meanwhile, the internet was ablaze with memes flooding Twitter and Instagram, YouTube commentators dissecting every moment, clips of Wallace stammering circulating with brutal captions. This wasn't just another interview gone wrong. It was a cultural moment that solidified Leavitt as a fearless, take-no-prisoners conservative warrior. And at this point, even MSNBC couldn't ignore the backlash. Clearly embarrassed by how things unfolded, MSNBC wasted no time launching into full damage control mode. Instead of acknowledging Wallace's clear defeat, the network desperately tried to spin the segment, calling it tense and heated, rather than admitting their anchor was completely outclassed. Almost immediately, liberal outlets jumped in, attempting to frame Leavitt as aggressive and disrespectful, a classic tactic used whenever a conservative guest refuses to back down. But this time, the viewers weren't buying it. The raw footage spoke for itself. Leavitt was simply stating facts, and Wallace couldn't handle the pressure. Even mainstream media allies of MSNBC struggled to make excuses for what happened. The backlash was overwhelming, and every attempt to downplay the moment only made Wallace's failure even more obvious. What made this even more significant was the fact that even non-political viewers saw through the spin. People who didn't typically engage in political debates started questioning, why was Wallace unable to respond with facts? Why did the media immediately attack Leavitt instead of addressing the issues? Why did MSNBC refuse to acknowledge what really happened? The more they tried to twist the story, the more people started questioning the bias they had been fed for so long. This wasn't just another debate gone viral. It was a moment of reckoning for MSNBC and the mainstream media. This moment wasn't just about one debate. It exposed a much deeper problem within mainstream media. For years, networks like MSNBC have operated under the assumption that they can push biased narratives, manipulate public perception, and control the conversation without being challenged. But Karoline Leavitt just shattered that illusion. She proved that conservatives are done playing defense. They aren't just pushing back. They're taking the fight directly to the media. And the best part? They're winning. This wasn't just an isolated moment. It was a wake-up call for outlets like MSNBC. Their monopoly on information is crumbling. The American public is no longer blindly trusting their reporting, and they can't silence the truth anymore. After this legendary TV moment, Leavitt's stock has skyrocketed in conservative circles. She's gaining more support. She's building even more credibility as a strong voice against media corruption. And she's emerging as a major force in the political landscape. One thing is certain. This won't be the last time she takes on the liberal press. If this showdown proved anything, it's that Leavitt is a force to be reckoned with, and the left-wing media is terrified of what she's capable of. This isn't just about Karoline Leavitt. This is about a changing media landscape where conservatives are no longer backing down. The mainstream media's stronghold is slipping, and more people are waking up to the truth. At the end of the day, this wasn't just another heated debate. It was a turning point in the ongoing battle against media bias. Karoline Leavitt didn't just defend herself, she dominated. She stood her ground, exposed the media's double standards, and left Nicole Wallace completely humiliated on live television. This moment sent a clear message. The days of conservatives rolling over and accepting media abuse, they're over. The mainstream media can no longer get away with twisting narratives unchecked. The tide is turning, and conservatives are fighting back like never before. What happens next? Stay tuned. This showdown was just the beginning. If Leavitt's performance proved anything, it's that she's a rising force and the media is terrified of her. But now we want to hear from you. Do you think this moment exposed MSNBC's bias once and for all? Will more conservatives follow Leavitt's lead and take on the mainstream media? Let us know in the comments below. And before you go, make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss another breakdown like this. Because trust me, this is only the beginning, and you won't want to miss what happens next.